For many decades, the entire world has been captivated by the life and legacy of Princess Diana. Her compassion, her elegance, and most of all her genuine connection with the people earned her the title of the Princess of the People. Yet behind that glamorous image was a mother who adored her children above everything else. Now, after years of silence, a long-lost letter that Diana wrote to her eldest son, Prince William, has finally been revealed. What did she wish to say? Join us as we uncover the surprising contents of this heartfelt letter from Princess Diana and the secrets it unveils. It all began rather inconspicuously, nearly without drawing attention, within the catalogue of a London auction house in July of 2004. There were no flashy headlines or official announcements, only a modest mention of handwritten letters by the late Princess of Wales. However, these were no ordinary letters. They were deeply personal, offering an unfiltered insight into her private life. Among that collection, one letter stood out. It spoke of her eldest son, Prince William, in a manner that hinted at how much he meant to her. The auction organized by the House Spin and Son included correspondence between Diana and Violet Collisson, a woman who was much more than a mere housekeeper. She was a loyal confidant of the Spencer family. For decades, Violet witnessed Diana's evolution from a shy young woman to the most photographed and admired woman on the planet. These letters documented that personal journey. Unlike the meticulously edited official palace documents, they were spontaneous, sincere, and overflowing with emotion. They chronicled the ups and downs of Diana's life, her struggles with the expectations of royalty, the overwhelming chaos of wedding preparations observed by millions, and, above all, the intense moments of her motherhood. One of the most enchanting letters, dated the 8th of July of 1981, just a few weeks before her wedding to Prince Charles, revealed a young bride caught in a whirlwind of last-minute preparations. And yet, despite the surrounding madness, Diana's words carried a playful and carefree tone. "Everyone is running around here preparing last-minute things, but the bride remains calm," she wrote. That small comment hinted at the warmth and closeness that endeared her to the public. Yet as the years went by, the tone of her letters grew more serious. The naive emotion of a young princess gave way to deeper feelings, frustration, worry, and above all an unwavering devotion to her two sons. It was not only the words that made these letters extraordinary, it was the emotional strength they contained. They reflected a mother who constantly thought of her children's happiness, their well-being, and the future that awaited them. The world knew Diana through documentary photographs and powerful interviews, but these handwritten messages offered something entirely different. They were not meant to be read by the public. They were private, intimate, and therefore even more revealing than any official speech or act. They served as the truest proof of her desire for her children to grow up with kindness and empathy, values that were difficult to nurture behind the palace walls. One of the most moving letters, dated the 21st of June of 1989, perfectly captured that sentiment. In that letter, written on official stationery from Kensington Palace and addressed to Sergeant George Plum of the Special Escort Group, she expressed her gratitude for organizing a motorbike exhibition for Prince William's 7th birthday. Her thankfulness was evident when she wrote, "It was a very lovely gesture on your part and on the part of your team to come on the day of William's birthday. You can't imagine the joy you brought to all those children and their mothers." What made that letter even more special were the tiny, enthusiastic signatures that followed her name, those of William and Harry, a rare and precious glimpse into a happy family moment away from the relentless media scrutiny. For those who had followed Diana's life, these letters were more than sentimental mementos. They reignited the debate about her complex relationship with the royal family and her determined choice to raise her children differently from previous generations, where royal children grew up in formal and distant environments. Diana broke with that tradition. She wanted William and Harry to experience a real childhood filled with the same adventures as any other child. According to her former bodyguard Ken Wharf, Diana strove to show them a world beyond the palace walls. She took them to amusement parks, had meals at fast food restaurants, and even traveled by public buses. It was not a carefully crafted image strategy, but a sincere belief that they needed to know what life was really like. In that sense, Diana was a mother determined to ensure that her children never lost contact with reality. Diana was not only a public figure of royalty, but also a devoted mother who wanted her children to gain experiences outside of the palace's privileges. She was convinced that, despite her high status, they needed to understand how ordinary people lived. To achieve that, she took them to places where they could mingle with people from different backgrounds and social classes, making sure they would not grow up in a bubble of luxury. At the same time, she was extremely protective of them. Aware of the constant media intrusion, she worked together with palace officials to organize official photographic sessions at key moments, such as the first day at school or during family holidays, in exchange for a degree of privacy, seeking to shield her children from an unceasing public onslaught. It was a delicate balance, providing the press just enough to satisfy public curiosity without sacrificing the children's childhood. Author Andrew Morton, in his book Diana, Her True Story, revealed how much Diana struggled with the intrusion of the media. She herself had endured that relentless spotlight and knew well the damage it could cause, especially to a child. Her letters about William were not mere updates. They were emotional portraits of a mother determined to prepare her son for the future while protecting him from its harsher realities. By the time those letters resurfaced at the 2004 auction, William was no longer a small boy, but a young university student still following the path his mother had carefully laid out for him. The letters, filled with maternal pride and wisdom, offered a deep insight into his character and the profound influence that Diana had on him. They arrived at a moment when the world was still mourning her loss, only 7 years after her tragic passing, and when the monarchy was still adapting to the changes she had helped set in motion. The increasing public prominence of William led many to see him as the emotional heir to his mother. But those letters were more than historical documents. They served as a touching reminder of everything that had been lost. Diana never lived to see her children become adults, to build their own families, or to lead causes that would undoubtedly have made her proud. And yet, through these handwritten notes, her voice remained alive, not in elaborated speeches or formal appearances, but in sincere words imbued with warmth, closeness, and authenticity. What began as an auction evolved into something far deeper. The rediscovered letters allowed people to once more feel Diana's presence. They revealed her unconditional love for William and confirmed that her legacy was not just found in photographs or isolated memories, but in the everyday decisions she made. Some choices were bold, while others were quiet acts of defiance against royal tradition, but ultimately everything was reduced to one simple truth. Before they were public figures, William and Harry were simply two children with an extraordinary mother. Diana understood that alongside privilege came immense pressure, and from the very beginning, she set out to give her children more than just titles. She aimed to provide them with a childhood filled with values, empathy, and a true connection to the real world. Was that upbringing reflective of the character she desired them to have? Let us consider her beginnings. On the 21st of June of 1982, at only 20 years of age, Diana became a mother for the first time by giving birth to Prince William. Her entry into motherhood was immediate and deeply transformative. It was not a role she simply accepted as fate. It was a mission she embraced with all her heart. Unlike many previous royal mothers who adhered to strict protocols and maintained a certain distance, Diana chose to do everything differently. She did not want to be a distant figure in her children's lives. She wanted to be present for every moment. She broke royal protocols with a personal touch. For example, she chose William's name herself rather than leaving it in the hands of palace tradition. Even more significantly, she defied the idea that royal nannies were to be responsible for nearly all aspects of childcare. Diana insisted on being an active, involved mother rather than just a symbolic figure. Her commitment became even clearer a few weeks after William's birth, when Prince Charles had to travel to Australia. Typically, the custom would have been to leave the baby in the care of palace staff, but Diana refused. She took her son with her, sending a resounding message that no royal duty was more important than being a mother. As William grew up, Diana continued to challenge expectations. Instead of employing private tutors to educate him within the palace, as had been customary for generations past, she enrolled him in a nearby nursery close to her residence in Kensington. Neighbors and passersby were often surprised to see a princess personally escorting her son to and from school, an entirely unusual gesture in royal history. This was not a symbolic act, it was a quiet revolution in the way future heirs were raised. But Diana did not stop there. She wanted both William and Harry to experience life beyond the luxuries and royal commitments. Their childhood was not solely composed of elegant dinners and institutional events. It was also rich with everyday experiences that any child would cherish. She took them to McDonald's, not because she fancied fast food, but because she wanted them to experience what other children did. She rode the London Underground with them, visited amusement parks, and surrounded them with people who did not bow or treat them with rigid formality. These outings were not mere indulgences, they were carefully planned lessons in empathy. Diana wanted her children to learn to understand life from every angle, not only from the heights of royalty. According to her former head of security, Ken Wharf, she organized these excursions meticulously, choosing the quietest times of the day, minimizing the security personnel, and even sometimes donning discreet disguises to go unnoticed. It was not just about gifting them an ordinary childhood. It was about planting in them the seed of empathy, a lesson that would remain with them forever. Diana's desire to instill these values became even more evident when she introduced her children to humanitarian work. In one particularly significant instance, she took William to visit Centre Point, a charitable organization in London dedicated to helping homeless young people. There, the young prince encountered children and teenagers who had grown up without a family, without proper education, and without a place to call home. For Diana, it was not merely about showing him the hardships of life. It was about ensuring that he understood the responsibility that came with his privileged position. Through her love, her rejection of outdated traditions, and her unwavering commitment as a mother, Diana transformed the way children were raised within the royal family. She redefined it completely. How strong was the bond between Diana and her children? Let us explore that further. At the beginning of the 90s, the marriage between Diana and Prince Charles had already reached an unsustainable point. The world watched as their relationship disintegrated amid the chaos of palace life, media pressures, personal conflicts, and internal royal politics. In that turbulent environment, Diana found one constant refuge: her children. More than ever, she poured all her energy into ensuring their education and protecting them from the turmoil around them. She personally chose the schools they would attend, prioritizing their privacy and emotional well-being over mere prestige. She opted for institutions such as Wetherby School and Lotgrove, which were known for their warm, nurturing environments. And she did not simply drop them off. She collaborated with the teaching staff to ensure that, at least within those school walls, William and Harry could enjoy as normal a childhood as possible. When the separation between Charles and Diana became official in 1992, the challenging process of shared custody began, all under the relentless gaze of the media. Yet Diana never wavered from the daily routines of her children's lives. She attended school events, cheered them on during sporting days, and even wrote little thank you notes to school staff, small gestures that spoke of a deep and consistent dedication. Many of these handwritten notes have surfaced at auctions, serving as tangible proof that for Diana, her role as a mother always came before any royal duty. In 1995, when she granted what would become her iconic interview with journalist Martin Bashir, watched by over 22 million people in the United Kingdom alone, the world witnessed the cracks in the royal facade. Even in that delicate moment, Diana made it clear where her priorities lay. Speaking candidly about her wish to raise her children with love, empathy, and resilience, she valued emotional intelligence far more than rigid adherence to protocol. It was a singular, powerful moment, a princess placing humanity above tradition. Soon after, Queen Elizabeth was formally asked by Diana to conclude her divorce. This move was a clear signal that the royal family had reached its breaking point. According to her former butler, Paul Burrell, Diana felt devastated, as if she were being sidelined and her voice no longer heard. Even as the walls of the palace seemed to close in on her, her children remained her greatest comfort, her anchor and her strength amid the storm. After the official signing of the divorce on the 28th of August of 1996, Diana lost her Royal Highness treatment. Although at first glance it might have seemed like a mere ceremonial detail, for her it carried immense personal weight. According to royal protocol, that change meant that someday she would be expected to bow even before her own children. When she confided this sentiment to William, his response was simple yet deeply moving. With barely 14 years of age, he replied, "Do not worry, Mommy. Someday when I become king, I shall return it to you." While that conversation has never been officially confirmed, for many it remains one of the most touching expressions of the bond between mother and son. Even in the past, Diana devoted all her energy to the causes that truly mattered to her: the fight against poverty, increasing awareness about the human immunodeficiency virus, and the eradication of anti-personnel mines. No longer did she represent the monarchy, she embodied her own values. Even after stepping back from the institutional spotlight, she never stopped writing heartfelt letters to friends, colleagues, and supporters, and in almost every one of them, one recurring theme remained: her children. She spoke of William's generous heart, of Harry's inexhaustible energy, and of her hopes for their future. She worried about the pressure they would eventually face and wished for them to grow up with integrity and independence. Diana understood that while she could not control what the future held, she could shape it through her love, the choices she made every day, and the words she left behind as her legacy. Her gifts to her children went beyond what any institution could ever offer: empathy, courage, and the strength to be true to themselves. Her style of motherhood was not based on duty or appearances. It was rooted in being truly present, in listening with sincerity, and in loving without conditions. She would tuck them in at night, write them letters, and always speak the truth, even when it hurt. The official announcement of the separation between Diana and Prince Charles in 1992 marked a turning point in her life. From that moment on, the atmosphere within Kensington Palace changed radically. Although she no longer shared a home with Charles, her responsibilities as a mother remained steadfast and, if anything, intensified. At that time, William was barely 10 and Harry only 8, a pivotal phase when they needed stability and emotional support more than ever. Diana took charge of their education and well-being. She actively participated in school routines, planned their weekends, and ensured their days were filled with attention and affection. With public focus increasingly on the collapse of the royal marriage, Diana began to share more of her personal experiences. One of the most shocking moments occurred on the 29th of June of 1994, when Charles publicly admitted on television that he had been unfaithful. Less than 1 year later, on the 20th of November of 1995, Diana gave her own account of events in an explosive interview on the Panorama program on the British Broadcasting Corporation. Over the course of 38 minutes, she spoke candidly about the difficulties of real life, her struggles with mental health, and her deep loneliness. But what truly touched the public's heart was her discussion of her children. She expressed her wish for William and Harry to grow up not only with a royal education, but also with emotional intelligence, so that they could understand the feelings and lives of ordinary people. Her words resonated with over 22 million viewers across the United Kingdom. The revelations from that interview had immediate and profound consequences within the royal family. Queen Elizabeth, after conferring with advisors including the Archbishop of Canterbury and the Prime Minister, quickly sent letters to both Diana and Charles urging them to formalize their divorce. According to biographers such as Tina Brown and Sally Bedell Smith, that decision struck Diana deeply. Her former butler, Paul Burrell, later confessed that she still held the hope of finding some space and time, not of being completely excluded from public life, but the process moved forward. After months of negotiations over finances, properties, and custody arrangements, the divorce was finalized on the 28th of August of 1996. With the divorce also came significant changes to Diana's status. Although she retained the title of Princess of Wales, she lost the Royal Highness treatment, meaning she was required to bow even in front of her ex-husband, her children, and other royals with higher titles. While that might seem a minor ceremonial detail, For Diana, it was a painfully symbolic rejection, a door closing forever. Paul Burrell recounted one especially emotional scene during those days when, overcome by the loss of her title, Diana confided in William. In a mature and tender exchange, he responded with the words, "Do not worry, Mommy. Someday when I become king, I shall return it to you." Even though the royal household has never officially confirmed that remark, it remains one of the most touching illustrations of the deep bond between mother and son. After officially withdrawing from her royal duties, Diana embarked on a new phase of life defined by her own principles and causes, rather than by the obligations of the monarchy. She resigned from over 100 official patronages and focused her energy on a select few organizations that truly ignited her passion, organizations such as Center Point, Great Ormond Street Hospital, the Royal Marston Hospital, the National AIDS Trust, and the Leprosy Mission. Although she was no longer an institutional figure, her humanitarian commitment grew even more fervent. The passion with which she supported these causes was greater than ever, and despite being removed from the core of the royal circle, her number one priority remained the same: her children. Diana entirely adapted her life around the school schedules of William and Harry. She would attend meetings with teachers, monitor their progress, and always remain an active part of their day-to-day lives, according to close witnesses including school staff and close friends. Diana was a committed, loving mother, always accessible and always attentive. However, this stage of her life was also marked by a growing sense of isolation. Having lost the formal support of the royal family, she no longer enjoyed the same security and backing as before, which left her feeling vulnerable and, at times, exposed. This feeling even appeared in some of her later personal letters and notes that were later published by Paul Burrell. In one particularly unsettling letter dated in October of 1995, she wrote, "This period of my life is the most dangerous. My husband is planning an accident with my car, a brake failure, and a severe head impact." The authenticity of that letter has been confirmed, though its content remains deeply controversial. Whether her fears were justified or not, this note revealed the emotional state of a woman who felt watched, threatened, and utterly unprotected. Yet despite everything, Diana never renounced her desire to help others. In January of 1997, she traveled to Angola with the International Red Cross to participate in a campaign against anti-personnel mines. The images of Diana walking through a freshly cleared minefield, dressed in protective vest and helmet, spread across the globe and became one of the most powerful and enduring icons of her final years. That act was proof of her bravery and a clear demonstration of how she used her public visibility to shine a light on global issues that might otherwise have gone unnoticed. During those last months, Diana remained committed to preparing William and Harry for the world. She wanted them to understand that leadership was not a privilege, but an opportunity to serve others. Friends, close advisors, and colleagues recalled that she frequently spoke with William about his charitable activities, advising him, "Use your position to help those who have no voice." It was more than just advice. It was a way of life that she had embraced and hoped to pass on to her sons. Sadly, that future she had so passionately envisioned for them was never to be fully realized. On the 31st of August of 1997, Diana's life ended suddenly in a tragic car accident in Paris. The entire world was left in shock by the news. Millions mourned her loss. Among the grieving crowds, two figures stood out in their silent sorrow: William, who was 15, and Harry, who was only 12. Both walked silently behind their mother's coffin, their expressions communicating more than words ever could. Even in her absence, Diana's influence on her children remained unmistakably alive. Though she did not live to see them become adults, her impact continued in every step they took. The values she nurtured in them, such as empathy, social commitment, and a genuine connection with the people, have endured over the years. Her greatest legacy was never delivered through official speeches or grand royal events. Rather, it lived in the small details: the letters she lovingly penned, the warm embraces at the end of the day, and the simple yet profound lessons she imparted. Diana did not wish for her children to be mere princes. She wanted them to grow into men with heart, with conscience, and with a strong sense of justice. She taught them that with privileges came enormous responsibility, the responsibility to serve, to listen, and to act for the good of others. Even though she did not live to see them reach full maturity, the world has witnessed how much of her spirit lives on within them. What do you think about the revelation of this lost letter from Princess Diana to her son William? We would love to read your thoughts in the comments. If this video has moved you as much as it has moved us to share this story, please do not forget to give it a like, share it, and subscribe to the channel so that you may continue to discover the most human stories of those who seem untouchable.